The Blades Ramble are proudly supported by our main channel sponsor, My Business Group, a group of brands designed to support owners, leaders and managers in business. If you're looking to grow your business, contact mybusinessgroup.co.uk today for more information or follow the link in the description below.
Blades fans, subscribe to Blades Ramble. Up the Blades.
What is happening, Blades, and welcome back to the Blades Ramble. I am, of course, Jimmy, and this is a bit of a, not an emergency ramble or anything like that, but I think it's something that we need to cover because obviously it's been in the ether for a little while. People have started asking me questions about it. Not that I am, IT, well, I often say this, don't I? But I'm not, I don't really understand fully everything that's going on. So we're going to try and work it out together and piece together what we know and whether it's something to be concerned about. This is, of course, the ownership battle, the court battle that's going on between our existing owners, COH Sports, which is now sort of merged into or transferred over to 1919 Partners, which in itself is part of the issue, I believe, and our former owners, United World, obviously fronted up by Prince Abdullah. Let's go through what we know first and foremost, just to get us started, and then we'll jump into your comments and we'll talk about everything we can do. But as I said, a lot of this will be us together working out what we know. So to start us off, I've gone for what we know. The fact of the matter is, COH Sports owes more than 35 million under the takeover deal. The owner's response, quoted in the reporting, does not dispute the debt. So anything that you may have seen, COH Sports or the former COH Sports, whatever it might be, Steve Rosen, Helmi Atuki, the consortium, they don't dispute owing £35 million to Prince Abdullah and United World for the purchase of Sheffield United. A winding up petition against COH Sports, not 1919 Partners, which again is where it gets a little bit murky. So the winding up petition is against COH Sports, which were the original purchase company, purchase vehicle, if you like, for Sheffield United. So Sheffield United was bought under the banner of COH Sports. That's due before the High Court tomorrow. The petition is against COH Sports, not Sheffield United as a football club. So, having said that, what's the allegation? The allegation is United World are saying that the transfer to 1919 Partners was designed to avoid creditors, to avoid them chasing the entity of ownership for the money that's owed. It also says that Steve Rosen, who is a figurehead essentially for the ownership, previous involvement with Invacare could become relevant because they are a company that has become insolvent in America, I believe, or certainly going through financial difficulties. Those are United World's arguments and not established findings. So there is some suggestion that this is a PR spin, because this is what's being reported on TalkSport, and just trying to overtly and loudly put the pressure onto the current Sheffield United ownership. What are the possible outcomes here? A 12-point deduction is possible, but not confirmed. United World says there's a real prospect of one, but the EFL has not announced a charge or a points deduction. Similarly, Rosen potentially losing control is a possibility. It is possible due to a regulatory consequence, not something that has happened. So he could lose control because of the issues he faces with another company that he owns, and due to that going through some disputes. It's my understanding, from what I've been able to summarise from the reports that I've got, which is an article from BBC Sport and an article from the New York Times on Sheffield United's current predicament. That is what I've been able to surmise from those two reports. Why is it going to court? So CRH Sports bought Sheffield United from Prince Abdullah's United World for just over £100 million in December 2024. That was the agreed fee for the club in that region. United World claims more than £35 million remains unpaid, and that the deal itself and that the debt itself is not disputed. So again, they are not saying they don't owe on the original deal £35 million. United World filed a winding up petition against COH Sports, which will be heard in the High Court on Wednesday, tomorrow. If the money isn't paid or an agreement reached, COH Sports could be wound up. So that holding company that purchased Sheffield United could be wound up. It's the ownership, the property of Sheffield United has since been transferred to 1919 partners. Importantly, it says here, the petition is against COH Sports, not Sheffield United as a football club. But how could it affect Sheffield United? In June, United shares were transferred from COH Sports into a new company, 1919 Partners LLC, now the club's parent company. So Sheffield United is now owned by 1919 Partners rather than COH Sports. Same people involved, or the majority of the same people involved as far as we're aware. So name transfer only, to a degree. United World claims that this was an attempt to avoid paying COH Sports creditors, as we've talked about. Neither the EFL or the independent financial regulator approved the share transfer, according to The Athletic, which is the New York Times article, but The Athletic have written it. And both began making inquiries. So the EFL are investigating, the independent financial regulator are investigating, because COH Sports did not get approval, as far as we're aware, certainly according to the Athletics report, they didn't get approval to transfer the ownership into the new company's name. And United World think that they're doing this to avoid the chase and sort of hide the debt trail, if you like. United World believes that if COH Sports is wound up, there's a real prospect of a 12-point deduction following EFL investigations. However, no deduction has been imposed, and a 12-point penalty is not an automatic resolution. Possible outcome. A 12-point deduction is possible but not confirmed. United World says there is a real prospect of one, as we've noted, but the EFL has not announced a charge or a points deduction. Similarly, Rosen potentially losing control is a possible regulatory consequence and not something that has yet happened. So that is what we understand in terms of where we are at the moment. And it's quite scary to think. I have obviously reached out to people involved as best I can. And word I've heard back is, and I'm obviously not going to mention individual names, I think it's quite crude to do so, but nothing final will happen tomorrow. It will only start the process and the discovery of information. So if we're thinking a hearing is going to be made tomorrow where Sheffield United are issued with a 12-point deduction, that's not the case at all. This is the start of proceedings. What will possibly be a long drawn-out affair. That's a very concerning affair. This is all what I've pieced together from articles that are out there in the public domain. As I said, the two main articles I've taken this from is something that Rob Staten reposted on X from a BBC Sport article, and The Athletic in the New York Times is where I found it. I think Kieran Maguire retweeted that, and that's where I found that information. Pulled it together from there, and this is the summary of those findings, essentially. This is not what one side has said or what the other side, other than what's been in the reports. And I don't know personally, I don't know enough about high-level business to give you a definitive answer as to whether we're in big trouble here or not. My gut feeling has always been with this, that we're in no immediate danger. And I don't think we are. I think my complete layman's impression of this is that Prince Abdullah has not received the money that he feels he was owed. That he was owed from the original deal. And he has tried, this is an opinion rather than fact, he has tried several ways to obtain that payment, which has been late and delayed and late and delayed and not happened. And he feels he has no alternative now but to pursue it legally. The one thing I'm comfortable sharing is Prince Abdullah in no way wants to harm Sheffield United, the football club, but how many of us would forgo £35 million and a further 10 million to come, I believe, in payments. So that is Prince Abdullah's stance. COH's stance is, well, we don't dispute the 35 million owed, but there may be some discrepancies in their case. Again, maybe, and I'm speculating, I don't know. They will have their reasons for not paying. Another reason I'm not fearful of the outcome, in terms, I don't think they'll let it get to this stage. However, it's certainly scary terminology at the moment, is they have the money to pay this. They have the money. So a 12-point deduction is season over. And that, I don't think it'll relegate us. Somebody I think it was Helen that made a great point in our Platinum chat earlier that said, we essentially started on -15 last season and Chris Wilder saved us. So I don't fear relegation. I certainly think it'll be very uncomfortable if we get -12, but we can certainly write off any prospects of promotion if we were to get a -12. I don't think it'll come to that, though. I honestly don't. We can't affect it. That's the other thing. So to worry about it is and my dad always says to me, if you can't change the outcome of something, you can't worry about it. So that's the approach I'm trying to take with it. I will say there's some speculation, and certainly COH are going with the narrative that this is scaremongering from United World, trying to force the issue and force payment. Maybe. Understandably so, if that's the case, but maybe. They, again, can't speak for COH Sports because I haven't spoken to anybody from that side of things regarding this case. I've spoken to people who are well informed, and they will have their reasons for not going through with payment. Whatever the reasons are, the optics look terrible, don't they? The optics look absolutely terrible. There are things, and it's very sensitive things. You may be able to piece it together. I'm not going to name it specifically, but there is a certain circumstance that happened under Prince Abdullah's ownership that may still have legal consequences to come for Sheffield United. And that might be something that they are waiting on the outcome of before saying, well, we were sold this is a huge issue and it wasn't resolved. It wasn't done on our watch. This wasn't a situation, and there might be a valuation question mark there. That might be something that they are putting into the ether to be considered, but this is high level business and again, very much over my head to a large degree. I don't enjoy this side of the game. I certainly don't enjoy when Sheffield United are in hot water, but even takeovers and stuff like that, it's not my bag. I care about preparing the team, getting the team sort of in good shape. We like talking about transfers, player performances, players' attitudes, and that's what we focus on as fans. We shouldn't have to be getting involved in any of this, but this is where we are, isn't it? This is where we find ourselves. So that's what I know, and that's what I've been able to pull together just from articles that are in the public domain. It's not something we'll never avoid talking about any subject. We're a channel that loves to be open and honest and come on and give our opinions about stuff. I want you guys to give your honest opinions as well. We know that people at the club watch the Ramble and are interested in hearing what the fans genuinely have to say. And as long as you keep it respectful, we'll always provide a voice for people to have their say on things. So they'll find out whether you're frustrated with things, optimistic, disillusioned, anything. This is the place to come and have your say about it. And nothing is off the table as long as it's done in the right way, and that's always been the minimum for us. So, right, let's jump into some comments and see what you guys are saying. Over 500 people here. Thank you to everybody for jumping on, and we'll go through this like we go through anything, like we go through a heavy defeat. Can we try and get through some group therapy together, if you like? So, Robin starts us off. Hi, Jimmy. Please, you're doing a video on this because we're all in the dark. I hope I've sort of clarified it a little bit, simplified it maybe. I can't guarantee you an outcome, Robin, obviously, but hopefully this has sort of made people a little bit more aware of the situation. Alan says, just read Danny Hall. We haven't put a bid in for a Nell yet. What the hell is going on? Yeah, I mean, I can discuss a Nell if you feel that's the thing to discuss. But obviously, there's this that's happening tomorrow that I think people want to know about. Prince is fanning the smoke. We're going to be okay, Blade, says Danny. Danny, who's been heavily involved in our Platinum chat, going back and forth with people that have been involved in certain conversations about this case, high level, so he's aware a little bit of he's formed his own opinion from that. Not going to happen. Settle, says Sheila. There you go. Settle out of court. You don't invest £100 million in a side to see a 12-point deduction that could put you in League One with your investment halved almost. Clickbait only. And that is largely the way I've tried to view it, Sheila, to be honest. I think it is scaremongering. I understand it if it is a scaremongering tactic from Prince Abdullah. It's working, isn't it? It's working. He is purely after what he is owed. I understand the perspective completely. But by the same token, I haven't had the same level of fear that is now out in the media. We've had TalkSport talking about it. Kieran Maguire's talked about it. Loads of different platforms have talked about it. And I think even the experts who don't seem to know the minutiae of it like I don't, they're all saying, well, from what we understand, it's nowhere near a points deduction stage. We're nowhere near that level. So that is where we are. Bean says, I know the -12 probably won't happen, but I'm just fed up of negative stories about these owners coming out every other week. They've took a team on the brink of the Prem to a team who could end up in League One if we get -12 in the space of 18 months. The club at the minute absolutely stinks. Barely any positive stories come out. They either need to get some major investment or leave. I'm drained. If the window ends up how I think it will, no permanent signings, this -12 thing lingering on, I don't think some fans will be far off protesting. They've done little to zero positive things. I can't disagree with the optics looking absolutely woeful, really. And I always try and be positive, and I'll try and play devils when people are being negative and try and spin a positive. I'm always willing to give the benefit of the doubt, and I still want to continue to do that. There's an open invite for anybody from either party that wants to come on, and I can probably speak to a few people about whether that's possible. It's certainly not appropriate at the moment that they do that. But in terms of speaking to the fan base, we are here as an independent channel, and some people might think a softball or whatever it might be, but at least they're speaking directly to the fans, and we can put your questions to them. But the communication overall with the fan base has been poor, and it's something we've been consistent in saying. You're right, Bean, that there's been negative story after negative story, and they don't do anything to pour cold water on that. It makes me think that it's not at the forefront of their concerns, which again, for us fans, may have to be a concern in itself. Blades Lad says, TalkSport says we don't have anything to worry about a points deduction yet, because I listened to that Kieran Maguire and Stephen Borden, I think his name is, both financial experts that they had on about it said we're not at that stage yet. So again, this is why we're coming on to hopefully squash a few concerns about it. Hopefully. Phil says, hi Jimmy, I wish the owners would communicate better with fans. We spend a lot of our hard-earned money on this club and we'll always be there. Appreciate the channel, up the Ramble, like and subscribe. Thank you, my mate. Appreciate you too. Dyson says, oh my goodness me. It's a Wednesday night coming on to a Sheffield United stream. Desperate. Absolutely desperate for relevance, aren't they? What's going on, Jimmy lad? Trying to work it out, Daz. Trying to work it out, mate. Lewis says, if this -12 happens, the owners need to do better. We need stronger leadership, better decisions, and a clear plan to move this club forward. The fans deserve that. Gaza says, hi Jimmy, you look forward so much to the start of any new season, but this one seems to be turning into a rumble, not a ramble. Your thoughts? Up the blades, up the Ramble. It's not been a great start, has it, in terms of news coming out of the club. I still feel optimistic with the man in the dugout. I can't not feel optimistic with Chris Wilder at the helm. I think you've already seen he's made us really difficult to beat. Some people may think I'm blinkered with my views on this, but it's my honest opinion as a fan. So even though I'm always a platform for anybody to come on and say different, Chris Wilder, I think, is the best man to guide us through this situation. And I also think if the owners hadn't been honest with him, then he would have a big problem at the moment. I think the owners must have been honest with him for him to sign a new contract, which also leads me to be a little bit more comfortable. We've just been on a show with Gaz Dunn, GAR, so yeah, a rip-off of VAR, but Gaz assistant referee, where we talk about refereeing decisions, and that was on the Jimmy Smith channel, and I've really enjoyed doing that. And he said, often as a ref, you go with your gut feeling, because 9 times out of 10, that's right. And I feel the same with this. My gut feeling is, we'll be fine. I think it's high-level posturing by two powerful entities, and it will get resolved one way or the other. And all we have to hope, and I believe, that Sheffield United will not be the sacrificial lamb in it all. Dad says, we're looking down a barrel. Gaza says, can we come to the party? Massive. Yeah, absolutely. Matt says, evening, Jimmy. Why always Sheffield United putting our name through the mud? Does not look good at all. I'm very confident we'll not be docked 12 points, but come on, United, sort it out. Up the blades, up the ramble. Lee was on 3 Mardy Blades last night, I think. They're all blending into one at the minute. And ultimately, I'd say, come on, lads, just sort it out. Lads, just sort it out. That's all we're asking. Sort it out. It's right, isn't it? Because the optics are terrible. And, you know, I don't mind us playing the game in the transfer market, making out like we're skint, even if we probably are. But particularly if we're not skint, I don't care if we're making out like we are to try and get better deals. But there's certain ways you don't want your football club to look in any circumstances. And let's not have this great club dragged through the mud any more than it has been already. Dave says, hi, Jimmy, this definitely won't come anywhere close to a points deduction. As a fan base, we have to stay positive and calm. We'll bring in players to improve the team and finish top 6. Up the blades, up the ramp. Thank you, my mate. I am confident of a top 8 push if we get the window right. And there is still a couple of big hitters that we need in. We need a strong centre-half. We need a Suter and or an L. And we need a Jack Clark type, in my opinion, on that left-hand side. Glyn says, hi, Jimmy. Personally, I think both parties are playing the game. I agree. I said today, I hope the chairman have the 35 million ready to prove to the EFL and lawyers it's there. It needs this situation or issue sorted in court. We can't forget as well, and I may have got this wrong as well, but it's my impression as a fan and a layman to this sort of business. They've passed an owners and directors test, just a much more stringent owners and directors test, just 18 months ago. So they have to prove that they have the funds to run the club without parachute payments for, I think it's a period of 3 years. Might be 2 years, but for a period of 3 years, I think it is. So they have definitely got the finances to resolve this. I think it is a forced dispute that they are pushing back on. This is why we're not paying you. This is why we want to renegotiate how much we owe you. Whereas Prince Abdullah is saying, this is the agreed price. Pay me what you owe me. So again, I don't think it'll come to it, but we don't know. We just don't know. Nick says, I'm starting to wonder if I take a 12-point deduction to get rid of COH. They are doing their best to muck things up. It won't necessarily mean we get rid of them either, though, does it, Nick? So if you're wanting an ownership change due to the 12-point deduction, they don't necessarily go hand in hand. Alex says, evening, Jimmy, hope you're good. What do you think might happen? I don't like being negative or reactionary, but it's hard not to expect the worst. How can they agree to a price and then refuse to pay? I think it's probably more prevalent in business than we would understand. Not that makes it right. I certainly think there's some moral questioning to go on. I genuinely think this will get settled out of court, and that's been my feeling that all along. It doesn't sit well with me or anyone else in the fan base. I never ever speak for the entire fan base, but I'm not sure there'll be anybody that's happy with the situation currently. So, yeah, I think it'll get settled, mate. And I think it will be out of court, but that's just my opinion on it. I don't know, as I say. Jack says, hopefully you've got some good news on this. These owners love making own goals. Alex says it paints the club in an awful light. Sort it or sell up. Running out of hope and patience with these owners. Just really want them to prove themselves and sort it. Glenn says, hi, Jimmy. I think both sides are playing a game. I think you've... as for PA, he wants back into the club. Well, I think he's been offered a way back into the club, but I don't think he would come back into the club alongside the current ownership. I think there's too much water under the bridge. Personally, that's my belief on it anyway. I think he was offered equity as opposed to finance, and I don't think he's interested at the moment. James says, don't know how lucky we were as a club with the Prince. I don't trust these new owners. Didn't from the beginning. Dempsey says, we are the most backwards club in the world. On the pitch, I'm actually quite content. Pretty confident Wilder's ideas will come to fruition and will be where we should be. Off the pitch, it's disgusting in every way. Jake says, I just wanted a good transfer window and to have focus on a new season of football. We will, Jake. Undoubtedly. I know this is a distraction that we don't need, and it's gone a little bit hysterical in the media over the last 24 hours. But ultimately, all us fans, when you strip everything back, all we care about is what happens on pitch. And that's all. We don't pay as money to go to Lane or to watch United or to hear about how we're doing, to listen to any of this, do we? This is not us. This is not what we're interested in the club for. we care about the team and the club itself, the community aspect of the club. So I don't think this will bleed into too much of our enjoyment of the club. It shouldn't anyway. And if you can avoid it, I would try and do that as much as you can. Blunt Yorkshireman says COH. Hopefully COH aren't daft enough to risk -12 in a possible relegation, which would cost us more than 35 mil to over 35 mil. I don't think they'll let it get anywhere near that far. This is etc. We should be very concerned, Jimmy. These owners need to go ASAP. Rich says, another shambles of a pre-season. The fans deserve better. Proper fed up of this season already. We're one game in, I know. That's how it feels, isn't it, to some? The worry is that this will affect our transfers. A winding up position is not a winding up order. That's the key. Luke says they need to sell up if they allow this to happen. They have the money, so this is a choice they're making. Chappers, though, says it's daft by Prince Abdullah. I have to walk a really fine line here because people know that I get on well with Prince Abdullah, and I don't make any bones about that. I don't apologise for it. I spoke to him last week, and I would want that money if that's what had been promised to me. So I don't think it's daft. I think it's sad that it's had to come to it. That's where I am with it. I think it's it's unfortunate that this has been where it's gone. But ultimately, if our current owners had paid the 35 million that they acknowledge that they owe, then I don't think we'd be here in this situation. Dan says, keep the good content going, Jimmy lad, doing a brilliant job. Thank you, my mate. Cool Thing says, what's happening? Don't know, pal. Don't know. Unbiased Blade says, if they are financially stable, then why can they not pay off the money? If they were financially stable, why do we have to sell our best players to cover these exact costs? Alex says, if we had deducted any points, there's no way back for them. The club deserves better. The word chances keeps springing to mind. Thought they were buying a Premier League club at the Championship price. That has always been a United World observation as well, that we were points clear at the top of the league when they came in. Points clear. And obviously we didn't go up that season. And this is the risk that they took, which they thought was obviously minimal, but it's come to it. Ian says, just had him on the other channel, Bry. I've reported him. Oh, so there's obviously somebody spamming the chat. Thank you for sorting that out, mods. Top mods. Let's have a look. I'm not reading that, obviously. Only 4 days into the season, and we're all talking about, his points deductions and a lack of transfer activity. It's embarrassing. It's a poo show, and it's so amateurish. It's not great, is it? Blunt Yorkshireman says, I love the approach with the fact and allegation sheet, Jimmy. Well done. Thank you, mate. Thank you. In fact, I thought I'd lost signal there, which would not have been good. Let me know that you can still hear me. It says I'm still live, but I'm not sure. But yeah, thank you, Blunt Yorkshireman. I just wanted to try and... It feels really complex, doesn't it? And it is, and we don't know enough information about it to clarify what's going on. But ultimately, this is what we know, or what we can confidently say we know. Dave Morwood says, waiting to see what happens in court, but thanks for this, mate. Looking well. Like and subscribe, please. Thank you, my mate. Feeling well as well. Joe says, evening, Jim. Just me who thinks that it's a storm in a teacup. I don't think it's a storm in a teacup, but I don't think it's as bad as some of the scaremongering has sort of made out to a degree. And look, it's people's job to report on it. I'm not saying people have been, what's the word? Irresponsible or anything like that. But I do think there's skipping a few pages. We're not at points deduction stage yet, but mentioning that will undoubtedly set panic amongst the fans. I don't think the owners are skint, says Joe. You don't put around 100 million quid in, which they are probably all up to all in to date, to not pay the last bit and lose. Scott says, evening, pal. Hope you're good. Just a mess, isn't it? Paints the owners in a poor light. And if you're a proposed transfer, does this put you off too? The fact they don't dispute it, why not just pay it? Aid says, keep it sensible, family channel. Thank you, my mate. These owners are a joke, Jim, to be honest. Need to pay this now. It's not a good look on the club. We will see what happens tomorrow in court, but it's worrying. If we get this -12, we are in bother. Yeah, we would be in bother. We would be in bother. And that would be a huge mark against the current ownership, no matter how it transpires. Joe says the club and all that money quite clearly feel is something they shouldn't be paying for, which we don't know about. I think the owners have been given a bit of a rough ride, but funnily the club and all that money quite clearly feel that there's something they shouldn't be paying for, which we don't know about. I think the owners have been given a bit of a rough ride, but funnily enough, the people saying going for blood were the same people who were hounding the Prince out. I remember saying, be careful what you wish for when people wanted His Royal Highness out. Enough, the people baying for blood were the same people who were hounding the Prince out. I remember saying, I think you've repeated yourself a couple of times there, Joe, but I understand the point. So it is a little bit of be careful what you wish for. I just don't think we've heard, we are seeing plenty, and we are being left to our own devices to make our own assumptions on the current ownership's actions. If they were more communicative with the fan base and a little bit, and they don't have to be, by the way, we are not entitled to this as a fan base. I just think it would be a smart strategic move for them if they were more communicative with the fan base. I think we might have a little bit more lenience because we feel like they're letting us into what's going on at the club and the reasoning behind their disputes with Prince Abdullah or wherever it might be. You know, people used to chastise Prince Abdullah for coming out and speaking to fan channels and things like that, but he also went on TalkSport and Sky Sports News and he would address fan concerns. Whether we agreed with it or not, he would answer questions that we were wanting to hear. So I do think COH or 1919 now could take a bit of advice from that, to be fair. I'm so tired of Sheffield United's boardroom battles, says Pete. Without doubt, the sole reason why we've spent so much time outside the top flight. Phil says, sack the board. They have no idea what they're doing. Scott says, I don't understand it all, really. The owner is found double guilty. What does that mean for us? As always, keep up the top work, mate. Up all the rambles. So I think if you are found to be insolvent, and again, this is just me piecing together what I've found. If you are found to be running a company like in America at this juncture, Steve Rosen is accused of being involved in a company that's run into financial difficulty, let's say. I think it's a two-strike rule with that. So if Sheffield United then come into financial difficulty or are unable to pay their debts, there's a chance he could get struck off as a director. So that is something that has been put into the ether by United World, I think, or certainly their representatives. They have got Nick DeMarco working for them, who worked with us on reducing the punishment for the non-payment of transfers when the Dozy Mabuse scenario came about. And it got us down to -2 rather than a -4 or a 3-window ban that we were going to have. There's all sorts of things that Nick DeMarco is a very successful lawyer, and he's working for Prince Abdullah in this conversation. Reese says, Prince, it's not just about money, it's about the good of the club. Tried to sell us to Henry Maurice, Dozy Mabuse, and now he would have sold us to Jeffrey Epstein for an extra 10 mil. Wow. This is very risky, in my opinion. The owners are moving very shady and it could affect our club, says Jack. Aid says, why can't teams in Yorkshire just have normal owners? We finally have one after 20 years of madmen. Hyder says, I'm more worried about the lack of signings and how poor our current squad is. Chong is a starter, which is criminal. Still no left winger. 12-point deduction will get us relegated in our current state. I don't think Chong's a starter. We do need a left winger, undoubtedly, Hyder. I'm okay with how we're going, but I'd like us to speed up a little bit. We have to. Shires, says these owners have now ruined 2 summer windows and so 2 seasons. Just don't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Why buy a business and then severely hamper its success? So much for being committed to getting to the Prem. John says it seems that Rosen et al. Have offered the Prince shares in United in lieu of payment of money. That's not a good sign. That had been offered already, to be fair. That's been part of the proposed deal for some time. So I don't think that'll happen. Well, I know it won't happen. Kyle says, fact that we aren't in talks with any players does have me asking questions about the owners. Reese, I'm not reading that again. You've repeated your same comment. You made me read a name out that I shouldn't have read. Jack says, these owners are making it very hard to back them. Den Blade says, do we think CW will walk away with all this bad press and upheaval? No, I don't. I think he's just signed a new deal. I think he's probably in the loop as to the inner workings, which we're not. I think it's most likely he is, because if they've kept him in the dark, that's one of the poorest moves they could make. So talk about risking it by taking it to the High Court. You're risking it by not involving Chris Wilder in what's going off, because he is the linchpin to helping us steer through these difficult waters for me. It's expected to be adjourned tomorrow, says Bright. Yes, it is. Yes, it is, undoubtedly. Kieran Maguire and Stefan Borson both saying any talk of a points deduction is well down the road, and both say it's likely to be settled out of court, says Ian, which is exactly my feelings on it as well. And I'm certainly no expert, but that is my gut feeling is what happens. John says, even if the club assets have been transferred to the new ownership vehicle, there are mechanisms to claw back the assets and quash the transfer. This is all separate to potential points deduction. Yeah, agreed. Shizy says, how are we going to attract top quality loans with these shenanigans going on? Just looks dodgy. Shame on you, COH. 35 mil, isn't that what ATB spends on holidays each year? Yeah, around that age. I think that's probably fair to deduce from that. Rai says, makes you laugh that clubs like ours can be deducted points so easily, yet Man City have 115 charges for years and nothing happens. Because they've got the Benjamins, haven't they? That's why, Rai, we know why it works like that. John says, I think the main thing will be is that if that company is wound up, you would think your current owners will stump up the cash before it gets there. If that company is wound up, then serious issues. That'll get knocked on, I think, to another hearing, and that's probably when it'll get sorted in between times. Martin says, need some points on the board to offset the possible points deduction. I don't think it'll come to that, Martin, but absolutely we need some points on the board anyway. Jack says, Jimmy, not sure. You're right here. If you've got the money, you pay it. Why would they let it drag on? It doesn't make sense. Sorry. Jack, I know you're a Leeds fan, so I don't think you understand, and I don't mean to patronise him, but there's been stuff that's gone on at the club that they may dispute that they have sort of either not been made aware of under Prince Abdullah's stewardship, or there's potentially other things that have gone off beforehand that they may spin it or put the narrative out there that they were misled in their purchase to some degree, so they may dispute the overall price of the club. I think that's some of the leverage that they're going to go for. So it's not a case of not having the money because they just pay it. If they can save, say, 10 million quid, then they will, won't they? So it's one of those. If they have it, why take the risk on not paying it? They're not daft, these people, are they? They will fully understand the risk. I believe they've got it. I don't know they've got it. I don't know that they've got it. So I might be way off. It might be a stalling tactic because they haven't got the brass. But my gut feeling is that as a consortium of successful businessmen outside of football, that they can find the money between them to pay this off. Because I just think they will. I think they will. Ray says, even in all, no matter what the outcome of this case, it's not good. It's bad publicity. It will put off clubs dealing with us across the board. Not happy with these owners one bit. Up all the rambles. Like and subscribe. Thank you, mate. The owners are fraudsters, says Hyder. 12-point deduction will get us relegated. The team was better last year. I disagree. I think we're in better shape this year. I'm not saying man for man and quality wise. Obviously, we've lost Gus Hamer, we've lost Andre Brooks. But I think if you just look at how we appear 1 or 2 games into the season, I think the mentality is much better, and that will always top ability for me in terms of if you can get the confidence into. I'd rather have average to above average players full of confidence than above average players to great players on the floor. I much prefer it that way around, and that's what I think we're close to getting. Blade Sean says, it doesn't matter if this ultimately comes to nothing. It's another bad look for these owners. We're feeling the consequences of last season's decisions with the transfer window, and now this. No disputing that. No disputing that point at all. It's very fair. So from the allegation, it doesn't sound as though payments are actually late, but United World saw the transfer of ownership it believes was done to avoid having to make payment of the remaining payments. No, apologies, Matt. The payment is overdue, and they acknowledge that debt, but they have shifted the asset into a different company now, so it's harder to chase for I believe it's harder to chase for the payments again. I don't understand it fully. I'm just giving you as best I can from a layman that's tried to piece things together and spoken to people that know more about what they're talking about than I do. If we get -12, says Jack, we'll be doomed. Totally different this year. -12, we'll have to sell for runners up then, says Ian. Nice. I'm with Ian, says Bryce. Scott says, feels like they've just tried to loophole what they owe. Just transferring ownership and going, no, that's not us. Can't have a normal pre-season. The fans deserve better, says Scott. Well said. If you get -12, says Ellis, you'll go down undeniably. I disagree. I don't think we'll go down. But look, I've got to back my own team, Anna. I've got to back my own team. I don't think we are. I think we'll finish 12 points above the relegation spots. I think we're good enough to do that. Would you trust a person who owns a pharmaceutical company after 2020? John Fleck certainly wouldn't, says Day Ones. Glyn says, did COH not offer PA the board a place on the board to oversee the day-to-day running because of his expertise running a football club? Not without their involvement, I don't think. I think Prince Abdullah, that'd suit him, to be honest, in my opinion. I think that would suit him, but I don't think they'll be a lot more complicated. And I don't think either party can work with each other now after this situation. I think all the trust has gone, hasn't it? And you can't work with people that you don't trust. Lepin says, be a bit rich of the EFL to dock points after they spent months scrutinising the owners. Absolutely, that's a point to raise as well. They've been through a stringent and tough owners and directors test, and EFL passed them. So, Sophie, do not knock that off the table. Sophie's just playing on the PlayStation as we're in here, and she's brought a tea in to the studio to carry on playing on the PlayStation while I'm on stream. Good morning, Jimmy, says Mr. V. I'm tired of these owners already. They sacked Wilder and hired Sayers, who got us off to a disastrous start, brought in some terrible AI signings, and now trying to get out of paying Prince Abdullah. They spent up the club's money, says Jack, and haven't even paid the previous owner. Rye says, I don't blame the Prince. I lay the whole blame with the owners. If the club gets punished, then get these clowns out of the club. They surely know what they were buying into and what it cost. Pay up or go. Scott says, it's not just the Americans in the spotlight. Prince Abdullah seems to be a poor reader of character. Tried selling us to a proper dodgy buys like that bloke that's now in prison. And Dozy. Don't know who Dozy is. Do I, Scott? Matt says it could be that COH 1919 didn't do anything in bad faith in transferring ownership, but United World are concerned that they have and are pursuing payments now as a result of the transfer rather than them being late. I do believe that they are late, Matt, but it could also have been done for the right reasons as well. It might have been. We also know there's an issue with former consortium participant Tom Page that's in a dispute with Steve Rosen, Helmi Atuki, and other members of what was COH Sports. 1919 might have been set up purely to remove Tom Page from the equation, which I think is a separate legal issue. Again, we don't want to blag each other's heads too much, do we? But this is why we don't understand the minutiae of it. We're just trying to get his head around it as fans, aren't we? Dangerous, these owners, says Jack. Pete Nelson says, the damage has been done, Jimmy. Good players don't want to sign for us with the prospect of minus 12 points hanging over us. Joe says, seems a bit of a storm in a teacup to me regarding the position of the club, Jim. Seems as if they don't feel as if they have to pay for something unbeknownst to us, obviously. I think you've already commented that, Joe, so I'm just going to skip over it, pal. Sean says, hi, Jim, thanks for the update. Can I ask, what has happened to Nigel Dawn, supposedly the new Dawn financially? PA owed 35 million, pay him it. Haven't heard anything new on Nigel Dawn. I think somebody asked Whit on X, and for those that don't know, Whit is Wilder's best pal. If he's still coming in, and I think they got a thumbs up or a fingers crossed or something like that. That was recently. I don't know personally any updates on that. I will ask the question because it's certainly pertinent at the moment, isn't it? But I don't know, Sean, is the honest answer at the moment. Bri says, a bit of housekeeping from Bri, I love this. Please hit that like button, folks. Help us promote the channel. If you're enjoying the stream and you enjoy what we do, liking the video really helps us, pushes out to more people, says the stuff that you're interested in, they might be interested in. And if you could subscribe to the channel, it's absolutely free. It just means we come up more on your feed, that's all. Hit the notification bell and you'll get a notification when we come on as well. Thom says, hey up pal, can't do all straightforward, can we? Owners just need to book their ideas up because they're dragging the club's name through the dirt. An English football club just isn't just a business, it's a way of life, and they haven't got the foggiest. What a brilliant way to sum it up. It's not just a business. It's certainly not to us, is it? It is a way of life. It is. And I couldn't put it better myself. Well said, mate. Sambo says the owners obviously have some sort of grievance if they are prepared to at least let it go to discovery in court. Absolutely, yeah. They feel they have a case, don't they? Because otherwise they wouldn't be taking it this far. Apparently Anella after Burnley, says Bri. I saw that as well. Again, we've enough to cover, haven't we, Bri? But I can certainly get to that in another stream. Macaras says that surely, though, does not breed confidence into these owners and the management. We'll be here next day hoping for good games, but can't see where you've gone next. Macaras. Cal says it's obvious no perms. I suspect the true reason for Sue to hold up is the owners at our side. Won't happen now. We will get a lone defender and winger if lucky. With regards to Anel, says Joe, I believe the funds will be there if Wilder wants to get it done. It absolutely stinks of Wilder putting all his eggs in the Suter basket and will probably come unstuck. Jackson says, hi Jim, technically wouldn't we have an 11-point deduction in some sense, seeing as we have 1 point on the board already? No, we would have a 12-point deduction and we'd be on -11, if that makes sense. Pete says, appreciate your positivity, Jimmy, but the facts speak for themselves. The owners have been awful so far. Again, Pete, I'm not disputing why people would have that opinion. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because what else is... People won't be up, you know... If I come on and I'm just like, this is really bad, guys. This is really bad. Because I genuinely don't feel like we're at that stage where I feel like that. I just think there's already enough of that out there with some of the articles that have been released, both nationally and locally, talking about the doom-mongering that could happen. And absolutely right, it could. But it hasn't yet, and we can't affect it. So let's hope that it can get resolved. Ultimately, Super Hands says the club are never going to comment publicly on an ongoing legal issue. Yeah, I think that's fair. Blades Insight says, do you think Turkey pulled out of purchasing Derby to join Prince Abdullah, knowing the Prince is in the right here? If Rosen has to leave as CEO, I don't see Helmy sticking on. Rosen is good one. Tom agrees with Hans. I think we would be very fortunate if that was the case, Blades Insight. Vibes says, I'm coming away slowly from football because of the kind of ownership like these guys. Football is being destroyed by money, crappy owners and overpaid players. You won't be the only one that feels like that, Vibes. All I would say to you is, if I can appeal to you at all, would be just try and detach yourself from this element of football. I know it's difficult, but I'm not interested in all this like legal posturing or anything like that. I'm more interested in what's happening with my foot. The only reason we're covering it is because we have a duty to discuss it as a fan base and give people a platform where they can openly talk about it and express their concerns. So we have to talk about it because it's something that's happening to our football club or about our football club. But ultimately, we want to be talking about Anel and Suter and whoever else we're talking about, whether it's going to happen, whether it's not going to happen. And we might have a moan about the owners because of that. But that's more our bag, isn't it? That's what's directly affecting the team on the pitch. None of this minus 12 points for stuff that has nothing to do with the team. Ian says, we'll not get near a points deduction up the rumble. Thank you, my mate. That's what Gus Amer called it. Forget Suter. We can't afford him. 5+3 has been on the table for weeks. We've made no other bids for Suter. Leicester need decent money and want to sell for more as need the money up front. Forget Anel also, says Liam. Carl says this ownership group need to do one and sell the club if they are Stony broke. Wilder is still the man for me. Up the blades, up the ramble, like and subscribe. Thank you, Carlos. Hope you're well, mate. Chris says, what hurts the most is the Prince knows what damage is caused to the club. The owners stand to lose millions if this is not settled. We also get a 3-window transfer ban that will ruin the club. Up the ramble. That is absolute worst case scenario, though, isn't it, Chris? And we could catastrophize about everything. And I'm not saying I might be completely blinkered here and wrong to be so. I won't say I'm so positive about it because I'm not, but I'm quite calm about it at the moment, I would say. And maybe I should be a little bit more concerned, but my genuine gut feeling is nothing will happen immediately, and until we know more, we can't really panic about it for me. More than anything, it's embarrassing. That's where I fall on it as well, MP. If we do get a 12-point deduction, we already have a point, so it'll only be -11. Always look on the bright side, says Daz. Kel says, Jimmy, is there any update on Harry Suter? Up the blades, up the ramble? No, I think it is. I think it'll be a pause, certainly for a couple of days on us for that. Sail Blade says, what's going on with the two main Sheffield teams? Two clubs with fabulous histories. If we keep being held back with charlatan owners, not great PR during the start of the season and the transfer window. Hard to argue that point, Sail Blade. Painter says, hope it goes well for you, Jimmy. It's sad to see where football is going. Yes, mate, it is. John says, just heard about the deduction on TalkSport, Jimmy. It's not good whichever way you look at it. It needs sorting now. Michael says, my worry would be that the EFL did not approve the transfer of ownership. That is a niggle. And Rosen is forced to resign as co-owner, hoping Phillips can rediscover some form and Bamford fires you to promotion, marching on together. Thank you, my mate. Nath says, doesn't look good. But whether we get a points deduction or not, Wilder will bring this team together to finish as high as we can. Autos, playoffs, or mid-table, even with 12 points deducted. Ian again doing us a solid. Please all hit the like button, everyone. It's free, and we'll push this content out to more viewers. Thank you. Nearly 700 people in here. I really appreciate it. Jeff says, is the Prince a serious man? Why would he employ the best and most expensive and most successful lawyer in football? The AFL will make no decision until the courts are finished. Nath says, tomorrow is a monumental day for Sheffield United that could change the course of our season. Let's hope it gets sorted out tomorrow in court. I don't think it will be, Nath. I think it'll be adjourned. I think it will rumble on, to pardon a phrase. Max says, this is incredibly embarrassing. Why have these owners let it get to this point? It's absolutely shambolic. Regardless how you look at it, I have tried to be positive, but the lack of transfers and now this. It says all owners have to pass an owners and directors test. They must submit a future financial forecast, something like that. Oh, yeah, sorry, future financial information, which is set between 24 and 36 months. Exactly, which, again, calms me because they will have had to put that in before the takeover, which has to show proof of funds and liquidity, doesn't it? Jim, what are your thoughts if we get a deduction? I still think we'll be all right, but I don't think it'll come to it, Joe. I don't think we even have to consider it at this moment in time. Let's have a look. Yvonne says -12 means a relegation battle. It would mean a relegation battle, yeah. John says you won't want John Texter or whatever his name is. He's been done big time, dodgy as hell. Absolutely right. Kieran says, evening Jim, hope you're well. First time to comment, but I have to say a lot of negative on transfers and these disputes. All we can do as Blades is support the lads on the pitch and keep the faith up the Ramble. Absolutely right, pal. Thank you for jumping out your comfort zone and commenting. I appreciate it always. It's not the easiest thing to do, but you've done it now. And hopefully it's nowhere near as bad as you thought it were going to be. And you can be a bit more comfortable doing it more in future. So thank you for joining in, mate. I appreciate it. H-Town says the people who are in the consortium have loads of money. Q Harry Enfield, loads of money. But does the consortium as a group have the money? They are keeping personal wealth well away from COH Sports or 1919 partners as it is now. Cool Thing says, well, the best thing to do is just see how COH acts. They must have a reason on not paying it. SUFC Loyal says, with the EFL already having carried out advanced investigations, surely if it was as PA makes out, Prince Abdullah makes out, the EFL would have acted quickly to impose sanctions whilst the window is open. It all stinks as note. Will the Plug Socket says, imagine being Betis and Wilder trying to sell the club to potential players, loans and perms, and then this happens. It's shocking from the club. Rich says, I'd be quite happy if the Prince came back as owner. I know he's had his critics, but I thought he was a great owner who put United first. I would agree. Compound an error with another error, says Susie. I also think they've backed managers. That's true. That is true. They've backed him financially. They backed Sayers, which was the wrong man to back, but he was their man and they backed him financially. They also backed Wilder with the Tom Cannon purchase. They offered Tom Cannon to Wilder, to be fair, but backed the first team in terms of money. Susie, that's a fair point to raise. David says, it's worrying with these owners. They take one step forward and 5 back. I think Wilder and Betis could talk to the owners to come out and speak to us. Speak to us supporters, I think he means. Evil Spirit says, Nick DeMarco got Saints, worked for Borough in Spygate. Yeah. There you go. So that's it, isn't it? Messiah says, I think with how strong the championship is this season, if you get that points deduction, I don't know if right now you're strong enough to avoid the drop. I think we'll be okay. Brand says, said since day one, I don't trust these owners, putting the club in a bad light and making fans worry who invest hard-earned money in a tough climate into the club. This does nothing but back my point. Adrian says, suspect COH bought the club to make a quick buck once we got into the Prem. Harry says, the Birmingham City fan says, EFL needs to get control of owners. They are the people who let them in and punish the fans. They can sympathise as we got a -9 7 years ago. The Bearded Blade says, these owners need to make a statement and pay up what they owe in total. They have the funds, so they need to just do it. All they're doing is harming the reputation of the club. Melissa says, reckon this will be settled in court or reckon it will just be 12 points docked. This boardroom behind the scenes could be the reason why we aren't signing anyone. It could be. Absolutely could be, Melissa. We don't know enough about it, do we? But I think this will be settled out of court, personally. Harry says, let's be real, Jimmy Budd. They bought the club because they were getting it on the cheap, hoping to make a quick profit with bottled promotion, and now they won't want to give up any more cash. I do fear that is part of it. I think they did think they were onto a winner and they were getting it at a good price. And now it's hard times, isn't it, as owners of Sheffield United, that you are going to have to dig deep. It's not what they were expecting, I don't think. But it's the situation they were in, and there was always a risk it could have come to this. Bald and Brilliant Lee says, mentioned a few times my view on the owner's decision so far whilst having the stewardship of our club, and this is again another poor decision to drag our club through the mud. Absolutely shocking. This makes us fans ask questions as to whether this is affecting us pulling the trigger on targets in the transfer window. If you're an ambitious player, would you come here with this going on? I'm not sure you would. I'm not sure you would. Adam says, because again, due to the optics, whether it's a tactical thing to save some money here or there, sometimes there's a bigger picture, isn't there? And I don't think we're quite seeing that. Adam says, if we do get -12, I honestly don't think we'll go down. Last year we would have had -12, we still would have stayed up. Bryce says, we can sit here all night and speculate. We're not in the know. Who owes what to whom? Who's suing who and for what? It will all come out in the wash. It will, mate. In the wesh. Paul says, in the words of Mick Jagger, it's all but over now. Shocking owners. Up the blades, up the ramble. Wolfgang, who's not been here for a while. Nice to see you, pal. What's the chances of them giving the Prince a £35 million stake instead of cash? He'd either be in the controlling shareholder or at least one of. But more importantly, when do Leicester just finally relent and accept the suitor bid because they can't afford his wages with the League One structure? Yeah, I think we will be in a better position once the window ticks on a little bit. I think they might have missed the boat to say yes on Suter at some point, but you know that will play out, won't it? In terms of the Prince, they have offered him equity in the club and he's refused it because I don't think he feels he can work with them. I think that's been documented as well in these online documents as well, so I don't want to sort of be saying anything out of turn. Andy Toon says, hi Jimmy, Leeds fan, but watch you daily and subscribe. Thank you, my mate, that's appreciated. I pray that things work out, which I'm sure they will. Me too, pal, me too, I'm sure they will as well. Jep says, what's going down? Ole, ole. Pigeon Face says, chances of winding up order is practically zero. The big danger is their lawyers have got a bad advice, but we have no way of knowing. No, we don't at the moment. Kev says, for the fans and your sake, I hope this 12 points doesn't happen. Good luck. Thank you, mate. Mark says, evening, Jim. I don't think you are far off in saying that the owners have become aware of financial anomalies within the sale contract. Who knows? Where are you reading these comments from? This is. Do you mean this is Stream Builder? This is is that what you mean? The software that I'm using. I think there's a link in the description. Ben Waddell says, you know what? I'm not rubbing it in, but if that perfectly fine second goal at Wembley stands, then you have none of these issues. These are the margins, unfortunately. Yeah, Waddell, thanks for just jabbing that knife a little bit further into his chest, but you're absolutely right. Jimmy, am I right in thinking the financial tightness at the moment is due to squad cost ratio rather than this legal spat? That is my understanding, pal, yes. That is my understanding, that we are being hamstrung by squad cost ratio in terms of the money we are able to spend on players. We need to get players out before we can get players in because of the financial constraints that squad cost ratio, SCR, are having on the club. It's killing us. Ultimately, in a lot of ways, because we had future transfers as a former parachute club, we had still got future transfer payments to come and be paid out. Just it's not been great. Jim Bob says, Jim, I told my Sheffield United fans when COH bought Sheffield United, I said Sheffield United will be in this situation. Okay, mate. Rich says, ever since they took over the club, the decision making has been questionable, starting with sacking Wilder, which has, in my opinion, set us back at least 2 years. They're a PR disaster. Strap yourselves in. Jimmy, where do you stand, says Kel. Have we got the money from Coventry for Gus yet? We renegotiated to have a lot of the money up front so we could be a bit more flexible in the transfer market, which is why I think that this is a separate issue to what's going on the field. Leeds United 2020 says, problem you've got, the ownership is not football fans, it's about what you get from Sheffield United supporters. You're just their personal piggy bank. You'll be here till the day you die. The game, they'll be gone in years. I think that's what you were meaning to say. But yeah, I'm not reading that, Ed. Not a chance. Go Glyn says, let's get Amanda Staveley as the new owner. John Spears says, we've been a laughing stock since these clowns took over. The Prince has shafted us royally. Owners working with Wrexham, says Julie. I don't think so. Rich says, good evening, Jimmy. Would you expect the owners will come out and explain the situation? Where are the owners? I don't think they're ever going to come out and explain illegal wrangling. I think that it'd be nice to have some sort of clarity with anything that they're able to tell us. But it's a little bit far gone now, isn't it, for me, Rich? Difficult. Phil says, hi, Jimmy. Fans can't affect what goes on behind the scenes. Our role is to get behind Chris and the players no matter what happens. I'll still be there for the Blades up the Ramble. Absolutely right, mate. Absolutely right. Bang on and well said. We'll be here for Countdown to kick off tomorrow, me and Baldley. So the show goes on, doesn't it? The show goes on. John says, I was so happy on Saturday. Firstly, I managed to get my digital season ticket to work at the turnstile. Result, John. Result. So did ATB. He was buzzing coming through that turnstile. Then I managed to get to my right at the top south stand seat without having a heart attack. Then I looked down at the pitch and saw green grass, and my team came out to play for me. Up the Blades, up the Ramble. More of that, John. More of that. Hope you're well, mate. Ersty says, feel like since these owners have come in, it's felt like there's more negatives to positives. I don't expect success, but it seems like it's Mickey Mouse ran club. Up the Blades, up the Ramble. Hope you're well, Jimmy, too. I'm very well, mate. Thank you. Sheffield United aside, but no, in all seriousness, things are going very well at the moment. I'm touching wood that long may it continue. Hope you're all good too. Let's have a look. Who else hasn't had a comment read? Because we've had so many comments, I'm just having to look at people who haven't had one read yet. Paul says 12 points is only 4 wins, so should be well away from the bottom 3. Get behind the boys on the pitch and stick together as one. I don't think we'll face a points deduction, if I'm honest. Minus 12 would have sent you down last season if Leicester didn't get points deducted, says Jack. But they did, and it didn't. So, I know what you're saying though, Jack. Rob says, karma, when will we ever learn as Blades? We all laughed at the pigs, and now it looks like it's our turn. It's never dull following United up the Ramble. Andrew says, as a Cov fan, hang on, he's put some meat on bones here. As a Cov fan, we all know about legal cases. Hopefully this is sorted soon, and you can concentrate on football. These things shall pass, as our club knows all too well. Play up Sky Blues. Thank you, my mate. Dino says, Anel's off to Burnley or Southampton. Suter will go to Wrexham. Yep, I'm being pessimistic, but why would you sign for us right now? We'll still be 8 when COH Sports have sodded off. Home Funk says, is it to do with the price? I'm sure I heard or saw it was a different sale price if the club went up or down. If they're flat out refusing an agreed fee, then it is major worries, just baffling. Total EPL show says, isn't Sheffield without at least one circus going on? Unfortunately true. Chef Paul says, after the first game, I thought it was going to be a long season. If this deduction happens, it will be a struggle without reinforcements. Fingers crossed it doesn't happen. Yeah, absolutely right. Fingers crossed it doesn't happen. Look, we've told you what we know and what we can piece together. I'm going to do a little bit more digging on this, and obviously we'll know a little bit more tomorrow, but I don't expect anything to come of the hearing tomorrow other than an adjournment, to be honest. I think it will kick the can down the road a little bit. It's certainly not something we can ignore, but my gut feeling is we don't need to worry about this immediately. I think it will get settled out of court. That is my general, from speaking to well-educated people about it, that is the general consensus at the moment. That is what makes most sense to all parties. Doesn't mean it's definitely going to go that way, but we can't get too concerned just because there's been some flash articles today that are sort of, it'll be no surprise to anybody if it gets adjourned tomorrow and it's rescheduled for a couple of months down the line, and in that time you'd hope something will be resolved. So stick with the team, United. That's what we're concerned about. Wilder needs us to back the team. The team that are already in situ need us to back them, whether we get new signings or we don't. We will get new signings, by the way, but whether we do or don't, we're here to back Sheffield United, and we'll be following them on Saturday, whether we're going to Swansea, whether you're joining me on watch along, whether you're just watching them yourselves or listening to them on radio or catching up with them later, we'll all be following them one way or other, because no matter what pain we put through, we're always there, aren't we? So there we go. That's where I'm going to leave it tonight. I'm going to say try and keep the faith, Blades. We're back tomorrow with Countdown to Kick-Off. Swansea versus Sheffield United. Myself and Lee will be doing all the preparation for it. We'll obviously see if there's any fallout from tomorrow. We which I don't believe they'll be. So for now, come on, you red and white wizards. Up the blades.